You guys wrote a book, and it's interesting because you said that this book was the thing that made you realize that you actually wanted to leave your job. Why is that?
Well, my old job in a courtroom, facts mattered and the process matters, and there's 12 people haven't made up their minds, and winning was not the ultimate objective. You know, prosecutors actually clear more people than defense attorneys do. So the objective is not to win. In politics, unfortunately, every day is a different election cycle, and the objective is always to win the next election. So you say they can sit down and discuss gun control, yes, but in the back of someone's mind is, how do I become the majority leader in the Senate next election cycle?
That's absolutely right.
So that's what dominates it.
It's such a distraction, and for those of us who watch the news and analyze it and talk about it, that's what's so frustrating, because it's all about a win. It's not necessarily how do we get the economy going? How do we get people working? How do we get the country moving forward? It's how do we win in the midterms? How does our party take back control? How do I stick it to the president? How do I serve my base? And that gets really frustrating.
That is what leads to the tribalism that we're seeing throughout this country. The reality of it is, having a mission-first objective allows us to be public servants. Thinking about winning versus losing makes us a part of the political vehicle.
Do people show up like that, or do they change? Do they become that when they get to Washington?
I do think there's a role for term limits in this country. Part of the challenge is that Washington has a corrosive environment. One of the reasons why we wrote the book Unified was to focus on those things that brought us together in a corrosive environment. The reality of it is, if you go there with a mission and you stay in your mission, you can make an incredible difference. If you go to the win or lose, the mission becomes secondary. I hope that we have more folks like Trey Gowdy who want to stay in Washington because they believe that this country needs someone who doesn't want the job, but who does it really well.
No, and I remember watching you during the Benghazi hearings and wishing that there are more people who are analytical, asking the questions that you were asking. And I think there's a role for skeptics like you here, and I understand why it's a really unattractive profession. You know, I look at people who are running for president now in 2020, who started running in 2017, and I think they are out of their minds. I don't blame you for leaving, but I wish there were more people who have that instinct who were staying. I want to ask you, though, did you see the FISA warrant application? Were you able to read that and what that memo from the committee was based on? Were you able to read the actual warrant application?
The initial application and the renewals, yes, ma'am. And all of them.
What do you have to say about that? Should the American people be able to set eyeballs on it like you did?
God, that's a tough one. I mean, this is the most famous FISA in the history of our country. So we're balancing people's natural desire to want to know what's in it versus the security component that we're okay not knowing what's in any of the others because we don't know about them. I would probably come down in this fact pattern. I wish none of it had happened. I wish we weren't having a fight over FISA abuse, but in my judgment, that's because the FBI made missteps. So if the president were to declassify this FISA, I would hope future presidents would not do it because it's a really important surveillance tool.
Is it like the nuclear option? Is it that once it's declassified for one application, it's declassified for everything?
No, it's just bad precedent. I think the first time you do something, the dam kind of breaks, and then you can always point and say, well, you did it in this fact pattern, why aren't you doing it here? Yeah. This is, you know, bad facts make for really tough decisions. And 2016 was a tough year for the Department of Justice on several different fronts. I would probably, this might be wildly unpopular, but thank goodness I'm leaving, so it won't matter. I would probably try to persuade my fellow Americans, let Horowitz, let the new quasi-special counsel look into it. If there is
John
abuse,
Huber?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
If they're not quite special counsel, but close, more than the DOJ.
I mean, he's a U.S. attorney and certainly has subpoena power. That's one of the things that you've had a problem with the Inspector General. As you said, there are at least 24 people that the Inspector General cannot subpoena, but a U.S. attorney would have greater subpoena power. I mean, Senator, I don't think that we need to have a second special counsel. I know you feel that way, but I worry that if this first special counsel has gone sideways and if the scope is too broad and if Paul Manafort's business dealings from a decade ago are now the target, somehow we're off base. And my worry is that I think, the surveillance state is ripe for abuse of power. I think you could say the same thing about special counsel. Is there a way of getting to the facts without having a second special counsel?
You certainly need the subpoena power. It appears to me that the Utah U.S. attorney is a good choice, a competent person that we have a lot of confidence in, according looking at his background. So I'm looking forward to the process unfolding. I hope that we find the facts as quickly as possible and that we bring more clarity to the American people.
Would you guys have been friends in high school?
He was an athlete and I was a nerd, so we probably, and neither one of us went to the library, so we certainly wouldn't have bumped into each other.
There was a library at school? I didn't realize that.
I'm not sure I was spelling it.
You could have helped him out or brought him a towel at the end of, what was your sport?
Football. I played a little college football about 20 pounds ago.
Nice. Do you think that kids should still, 20 pounds ago, should kids as young as 8 start playing football?
A lot of the kids today are moving to flag football, which I think is probably an appropriate step with all the concussion issues and the concerns that we have. The NFL is changing a lot of the rules in order to make sure that we're better prepared for the future of the sport. The reality of it is, if I had a kid, soccer's not a bad choice. Golf, he's a great golfer. I'd let my kid learn from Trey Gowdy on how to play golf. I'm still a football fan, so I'm passionate about the sport.
And me too. College football is my favorite sport on earth.
You must be from the South, right?
No, I'm from the...
I was joking.
We always lose. I'm from the Pac-12. It's sad.
That's why we like y'all, though.
Are you guys best friends in Congress?
Oh, it's more than just Congress. I will be his friend. I've asked him to preach my funeral, and I couldn't want to ask him. He's a remarkable human being, whether he's in politics or not, and I'm going to follow his career. I hope he runs for president one day, and I'll be there to support him. But we're going to be friends for the rest of our lives.
Absolutely. The fact of the matter is that this book, Unified, was written not because of a desire to talk about friendship, but it was a point of inflection when there was a church shooting in a state like South Carolina, where we have a provocative history on race, and yet I turned to a white guy from the same state. It just speaks to the evolution of the human heart, the Southern heart, and how much progress we've seen in this country. We still have a ways to go, but we have done some amazing things in a short period of time.
We do have our challenges as human beings, but there is redemption.
Oh my gosh!
And that is a beautiful message from both of you, Congressman, Senator. Thank you both so much.
Thanks for having us.
All right, very good.